I want to welcome everybody to the October Spooktacular event here at Aqua Aquarium. I want to give a huge shout out to Mike and Steve and Angelino and everybody here at Aqua Aquarium for making all this happen. I'll give them a huge round of applause.
I wanted to say something I've never said before. I should have waited till my 3rd year anniversary to say this. But I don't know if any of y'all ever caught it. But Aqua Aquarium, when I thought of the name, is one of those oxymorons. Aqua Aquarium.
Yes.
I actually thought about that when I was like,
Well,
that sounds stupid as hell. I'm gonna do it.
coming from a moron, that makes sense.
Yeah, oxymoron. There we go. That's why you might grow tonight.
But yes, they also have a sale going on. I believe it's 20% off. Am I correct?
20% off regular price?
Yes. Yeah.
20% off on all line stock. On the normal stuff, it's your normal 10% off as a member on any club. And then we have like the corals on the right hand side. There's 3 of those for $100.
And for the record, guys, the team members here have told me that I'm not allowed to negotiate prices tonight. So when I get drunk, you cannot talk to me and say, "Hey, Mike, how much is this?" I know you guys like to do that, but it's not. They're not gonna let it happen at the register. So.
Yeah, because the register is not being controlled by him.
Right. But no, hey, honestly, Mike has been a fixture at the Greater Houston Aquarium Club for what? Over a decade.
Since it started.
Yes. So that's what, 11 and a half
I was
years?
actually one of the people at the table that was round.
Yeah.
We had the discussion. And the table was round, so we were equals.
Well, hey, thank you, sir. I was going to discuss nocturnal fish, and still am. Nocturnal fish are, oftentimes, they can be a little bit difficult to keep in the hobby. You know, they are one of those amazing fish you spot and you go, you know, I want a banjo catfish, or I want a driftwood, a honeycomb tatty.
Yay.
But they literally never come out. You don't see them. So how do you know if they're eating? How do you care for those oddball striped raphaels and spotted raphaels that you know live under that driftwood? You see them. And if you pick it up, they'll turn around. But
You save money by not buying a light.
yes. Lower light will definitely help. And feeding them something they can't resist. Feed a meaty food, you know, bloodworms, something that will draw them out. I will say that there was a small little device that I came across years ago. I know it's still made. I know that you could probably make one yourself. Basically, it was a tiny little stick pin that had a red LED on it, and they called it a critter torch. And it was just for observing fish at night. You've got all your whole room's blacked out, and you've got a little red LED light you can watch your fish with. And it was such a creative idea for watching those fish. A lot of fish we think of as being nocturnal, like a black ghost. You know, black ghost naturally comes to our mind that says, well, this is a nocturnal fish. In essence, this fish is out and active a lot of the day in lower light areas, but it comes from a blackwater region. So those regions are naturally devoid of light anyways. So any sort of bright light is weird for that fish. You keep it in a real low lit tank and it will be out and active. We have one that's pushing almost 9 inches and literally it is always out. But we've only got a tiny little strip LED light, you know, running a 115-gallon tank. So it's literally dimly lit at best. Dimly lit tanks can help. Make certain that a lot of these nocturnal fish can get very large, like very, very large. Make certain and do your research. You know, these South American doradids can get massive. The spotted Raphaels are really cute and they stay small, but you start getting into some of the giants and the ripsaw cats, and those can become 36-inch monsters real fast. And at some point, they no longer have a place to hide. They just can't. The driftwoods are a notorious one. Many people that keep African tanks are familiar with cynodonts. Cynodontists kind of go hand in hand with a lot of Rift Lake tanks. Usually any sort of meaty blood, food will bring them out. They will hunt and eat, even if it's the middle of the day. They are quite capable. Offering them a hiding spot, I have found oftentimes actually gets you to see them more. I know it seems counterintuitive to give them a hiding spot, but once they have that hiding spot, they feel safer to come venture out because they know they can go back. But if they don't have it, then they've jammed themselves up in some weird spot behind a filter intake, and it just doesn't ever work. Lower light tanks can oftentimes help. I wouldn't recommend taking a whole bunch of nocturnal fish and throwing them in a heavily planted aquarium. You will probably never see them. They're going to go, wow, dude, it's like the sun in here. Dude, I am going to hide until it gets dark, and then I'm going to come out and I'm going to eat up all your other tank mates.
Touch based on what he said. So, y'all, most of y'all know Book. So I met him up in Asia, and we went fishing, right? And we would throw bait to catch these monster fish that he's talking about. And we wouldn't catch them until we threw it, where most anglers wouldn't want to throw it there because you get snagged on this and snagged on that. But like you said, the driftwood, the rock, the this, the that. Those fish he's talking about, that's where they spend most of their days. Come out at night, but if you throw your line and your bait around those
Eddies and those
things,
yeah, obstructions,
if you will, you'll catch them. So long story short, I mean, you're throwing 10 lines out, you're getting 9 of them snagged, but that one time you catch that.
Oh yeah.
All that.
Yeah, those big. I mean, honestly, you get into some of those. Those are those highly sought after fish. Those goonch. I mean, if you haven't seen a goonch, they get massive. They get big. There's a lot of really cool. A lot of primarily catfish, lorisards. I mean, honestly, I can tell you that we have had a royal placo for almost 2.5 years, and I see him maybe twice, 2-3 times a year. He'll come out. Dude, my wife calls him Creeper. He's tripled in size. You look at him and you go, dude, how can I miss this fish? Dude, he is very good at hiding. But you stay still, observe the tank, feed the tank, and dude, he'll slowly start coming out. Knowing what your fish eat is highly important. A lot of people end up failing with royal placos. It's a prime example of not knowing what they eat. If you take a royal placo and you put it into a nice tank with a bunch of rocks and fake plants, and dude, that fish will starve. It is a xylophore. It eats wood. Literally, a large percentage of its diet is chewing driftwood.
I didn't say you're
So
ready
if
tomorrow.
you don't have any driftwood, you can imagine what happens. Dude, it's just going to slowly starve. It's going to try to eat other things, but that's a bulk of its diet is those driftwood. So it's not an effective strategy for keeping this fish long term. They would eat leaf litter, any sort of like pods, anything that's got a lot of meat to it. If you threw in Indian almond leaves, there's not a whole lot to it, so it would go through those pretty fast.
Do you have to buy like special driftwood, or can you just take any clean piece of wood and feed it to them?
It just depends. I would definitely avoid any sort of pines. Pines don't usually last very long in an aquarium. They rot really quick. Any sort of hardwood, though, would be usually acceptable. I'd avoid maybe crepe myrtles. I've heard that those can be an issue with with certain saps. Just do a little research prior to the wood you're using, but most oaks and normal woods would be fine. No problem. Let's see, other nocturnal fish. There are a lot of predatory fish that come out at night, and some that we see in the hobby that we don't think of as nocturnal. You look at a frontosa, and a frontosa we naturally go, okay, it's a really gorgeous fish. They're out a lot. These are nocturnal predators in Lake Tanganyika. Dude, they go down into like really dark caves and hide during the day, and they come out at night and they eat their own weight in cyprichromis. I think that somebody actually calculated what it would take in cyprichromis, the cost, at like $30 a sip to raise a frontosa to full size. And it was something like $30,000. So that giant frontosa, that's what they generally eat. So putting that front, you giving it a darker spot in some caverns and a much larger tank, you're going to start seeing a lot more of those natural behaviors of where they kind of emerge at night and they start to hunt. A lot of the Maury mids are naturally nocturnal. The Bickers they're notoriously nocturnal. You can see them during the day, but you want to see a Bicker hunt, you're going to have to wait till it's night. It's just going to gorge itself. There's a lot of different fish that are primarily nocturnal. Now, sometimes during their lives, they'll shift. So knowing and expecting that can help. You look at our bullheads, our bullhead catfish that are found in almost any creek or ditch around here. And at a large size, they're all nocturnal. You're not going to hardly see them during the day. But whenever they're born, they know that there's a lot less competition during the day. So they'll get about 1,000 of them, and they'll swarm together and make it look like they're a much bigger fish, and they'll slowly just move as a huge shadow of tiny little catfish. And they're always out during the day. So as those fish shift, you'll start seeing those kind of differences. Breeding of a lot of nocturnal fish can be a little bit trickier. They're not as easy to breed. Oftentimes, it is throw things into tank, let it sit for many, many years, feed it lots, and start doing counting. Remember how many you put in, and start counting. I remember one of the first clown loach successful breeding accounts ever that I'd ever read. And the guy said that basically he'd gotten about 8 clown loaches, threw them in a planted tank, and meticulously paid attention and fed them and worked at them for about 3 years. And then he just kind of said, you know what, I'm done with this. Dude, if you guys breed, good on you. And he just would huck bloodworms in every once in a while. So fast forward 10 years, he finally goes, all right, dude, I'm done with these things. I don't ever see them. Dude,
10 years.
I've wasted so much time doing this. I'm never going to figure it out. And he starts netting them out, and he realizes he only had 6 in there, and he started pulling out 12. And he went, wait a minute. Now all of a sudden he went, damn it, because I don't know what the parameters were when they bred. What caused them to breed? So he was really frustrated, but very happy. And he kind of he wrote out the thing, and he said, this is my breeding account of a breeding I never observed. Good luck. That's what worked for me. Sadly, that is the case with most banjo catfish and all the other breeding accounts that I oftentimes see. It's really an odd thing. Every once in a while, something is a bit better known. Some of the driftwood catfish, they actually have almost a similar adaptation to live bearers, where the male has almost a gonopodium, and they actually have an internal fertilization that occurs, so they're almost arguably a live bearer, which is an oddity. Honestly, a lot of nocturnal fish can be fun, and they are definitely eye-catching. Succeeding with them can be a challenge, but once you've figured it out, it can be really rewarding. I don't know. Any questions? Comments, concerns?
Axolotls are kind of nocturnal or semi-nocturnal.
Yes, yeah. A lot of amphibians are arguably nocturnal. I have yet to see hellbenders, giant salamanders, axolotls. Most of the salamanders don't come out until night. It's imminently easier for them to prey, to actually hunt.
Is there a way you can make a fish that? Is there a way you can like infuse the circadian rhythm of a fish that basically make it think that it's like that it's night when it's night?
I have seen people successfully feed an aquarium just after start and avoid feeding at night, and it eventually work a fish that is amenable to eating during the day, and he basically just kind of gives up and starts eating during the day.
You look cuter with this one.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I have seen them successfully do that. Now, certain fish are just dead set on the circadian rhythm, and there's just no getting around it. They are just nocturnal. I've seen a lot of, they call them Cornish jacks, eastern porpoise nose. It's a morimid. Have you ever seen an elephant nose? Okay, so they're basically, imagine an elephant nose that gets to about 2.5 to 3 foot. That's a huge hunter predator and uses electrolocation to actually figure out where they are. That's the hunters of Lake Malawi. That's who eats the cichlids. But they get massive, and they actually can communicate via electrosensation. Whenever they come across each other, they'll actually fire back and forth, and they can actually determine who each other is, and they will actually hunt in packs. Because they'll feel a fish go out, and one will be the driver driving the fish, and the other ones will snap them up and they'll swap. They're quite intelligent. They're one of the most intelligent fish. I've seen them actually, you take aluminum foil and ball it up, submerge it in a tank, and they'll actually play with it like a ball because they can feel it. Because it interacts weirdly with their electro field.
I was considering blacking out the size of the tank, having a bunch of top floating plants, and using a red light or something.
Oh yeah, that would definitely work. That would easily work. You'll get a success there.
Sidebar. So I'm blind. I see your face. I don't see your face.
Yeah.
And every time I look over there, I think Jamie's sitting right there. That's some bull. I'm not kidding. I looked over, why is Jamie sitting on the floor?
Right? All right, so I think that wraps up the topic. Does anybody else have any questions?
I got one. So, let's say you're keeping a bunch of nocturnal species, or even just a couple, and they're the ones like you have that just, they disappear for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do anything to keep track of them, make sure they're actually still alive in there from time to time, or what?
Usually what I will do is try to have a dedicated feeding at night, or at least prior to night. Kill off all the room lights and, all my room lights except for a real minimal amount, and hammer it with 4 or 5 bloodworm cubes, and I'll sit down in front of the tank and be really still and just watch and observe. I'll see a lot of motion and activity that if I'm standing there looking and doing this, the fish will get spooked and go right back. That's something that I try to do. Sometimes it works. For my royal, it doesn't, because inherently the tank's full of wood. There's no wood that's going to tempt him any more than the entire tank of wood. So he's like, I'm onto you. You have no trickery for me. So every once in a while, I'll just walk by, and he'll be right out in front. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'll whistle at Sasha, and dude, he will immediately dart. Dude, and you're like, dude, he was huge. Dude. I promise.
If you already talked about this, I apologize, but is there anything in particular that you use to make a red flashlight? Or do you just get a red bulb? Can you just use the red cellophane or red?
I have seen they offer, there's an item online I have been wanting to get one, but they're produced in Europe, so I've got to get it from Europe. It's actually a tiny little LED flashlight called a critter torch, and it's one single red LED.
So you're gonna like burn their retinas?
No. Literally, it's just a really faint red, and it would be great in a completely dark tank.
Right. And what I've used, and I don't know if it's with the same nocturnal stuff, but is just lens filter.
Yeah.
For camera.
Yeah, a camera lens filter, like that you could get up at like Hobby Lobby.
Right. You can cut that out and put it inside the light bulb thing
Right.
of the flashlight. Works pretty well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, see, so she was saying that like simply cutting out, like going up to Hobby Lobby and getting some of that red cellophane, and basically putting it on like a low-powered flashlight, and
Or an
basically
LED.
it would give you like
Or an
a
LED flashlight.
or an LED flashlight, and it would give you a red filter. I think that covers everything.